Hey, how's it going? So, just want to talk about this television. This is the LG C7. It's a 65-inch OLED. Recently made an upgrade. Now, somebody asked me if I got rid of my Samsung, and no, the Samsung's actually hanging on the wall behind it, my JS9500. And I plan to keep it there because that set's a beast. It's one of the best sets I've owned since my Panasonic ZT60 Plasma. I still have the VT50 Plasma up in my bedroom. And you know, I've seen all these arguments online about LED versus OLED, and this, you know, people going on about how LED is so much better, and then OLED people are going OLED so much better, and brightness and everything else, and it's all just clown shoes. I mean, everything is relative. Now, from watching content on both of these sets in the past number of days, I can tell you there's stuff that on the OLED is just spectacular. That really it surpasses what I saw on my Samsung. And the Samsung it's one of the best LED sets I think ever made, in my opinion, pound for pound. The JS9500, you know, 4K 10-bit panel, quantum dots. Let me throw something else on in here. Quantum dots. It's got 220 zones of backlighting. It's a full array backlit set. It's incredible. And there are things on that set that I think look better on that than they do on the OLED. Star Trek Into Darkness, for instance, at the beginning scene that if you've ever seen my video when I do the review of the movie, I think it looks better on the LED than it does the OLED. But Star Trek, the first movie, the reboot, looks better on the OLED than it does on the LED, just because of the way the OLED handles color. It's spectacular, it's breathtaking. Planet Earth looks better on the OLED. So there are films that I think just take advantage of one or the other based on sort of the peak brightness. Sometimes, you know, with the LED, when you have it in its peak brightness, it gives certain scenes, it makes things just have that reflective glow and makes, say a metallic object look more like metal with light glowing off of it, whereas with the OLED, sometimes it's a little bit flatter, but if you kick the OLED up in the vivid mode, you start to see that shine. Whereas with the LED, you tend to get that more consistently in a lot of things, but the trade-off is when the scenes get really dark, you do see some light bleed. Even with 220 zones of backlighting, as amazing as that is, I do at times see light bleed. I was watching Gravity. I threw that in the other day, and it made me realize just how much more powerful of an image it is on the OLED than it was on the LED, as good as it looked. So, you know, I always say, you know, pick your TV based on your usage. Don't worry what anybody else is telling you. The OLEDs have gone really good for response times as well. So back when I first started looking, they were terrible at it. And if you've watched any of my videos before, I used to always talk about how I didn't think LED or OLED was ready for prime time. Before I bought my Samsung, I had pre-ordered a 4K OLED, an LG, but because of the issues with image retention, judder, the price, it was like $6,000 more than the Samsung. I think it was $5,000 to $6,000 more than the Samsung. But you know, that wasn't an issue. I was going to purchase it anyway. But when I started looking at the performance of the set and thought about my usage, it didn't make any sense to me to purchase it at the time. So I decided to cancel my pre-order, and I went with the Samsung when that was released and waited. And the other things I've talked about was I thought OLED will really reach its full potential, excuse me, when Panasonic got its hands on it, because they have all that experience with emissive technologies based on their OLEDs, or sorry, their plasmas, or Sony because of their processors. So I actually, when the Panasonic, the newest set came out, I went to an expo, electronics expo in Toronto to look at it. Very impressive, beautiful set. It's going to compete more with the LG sort of G7. But the one weakness I found with the television is when they threw on HDR content, it just wasn't bright enough to give it that pop. It looked good, but it didn't have the sort of LED pop to it. Anything else looked spectacular. With the Sony, again, with HDR content, it looked great, and it got a little bit brighter than the LG, but the problem was in getting brighter than the LG in certain things, what tended to happen with the Sony was it was actually washing out certain details and just the way it handles its brightness. Whereas the LG is, the C7 it's a brighter set than last year's C6, and it sort of really shows in the content. When I went and did my testing and took my own content and trying to decide on which one to purchase. The Sony offers black frame insertion. However, if you have ever bought high-end in a video file, you kind of know that adds flicker, and that's not acceptable. You know, it's something that they will generally recommend if you want the best image, leaving turned off. So it really, to me, is a moot point to have that. But where Sony, I think, does really well is with that X1 Extreme chip. It upscales everything to look near 4K, and it's pretty amazing. However, it isn't a evolutionary jump over the competitors and what you get in the Panasonic or the LG. So it didn't really leave enough of a gap in what each TV was good at for me to consider the Sony, which is what I went into the store to purchase, the Sony A1E 65-inch set. And I took my own content. I never really thought I was going to buy an LG. I always thought I'd buy a Sony or a Panasonic. And once I started doing my testing and saw how close the sets were performance-wise, and had to look at my usage and pound for pound what set was good at what, I really felt that the LG had a slightly better TV than either the Sony or the Panasonic, and also the fact that they're all LG panels, just with different processors behind them. The Philips TV also is going to be a very good TV. And the great thing about the LG sets is they have this range of television sets. So you have the Sony competing with the G7 and the Panasonic competing with the G7 up in that really high-end range price-wise. And then you're going to have the Philips competing more with like the B7, C7, and that I think is going to be in that price range. The Philips looks spectacular as well. The issue with that is going to be judder, or response time if you're a gamer. And the LG offers all of these different ranges. Of course, being the panel's manufacturer, I think the best thing ever for product is when there's competition, because that means that everybody steps up their game, and LG did as well. And this TV is spectacular. Once I started doing my testing and saw how good this LG was, I couldn't justify the $2,500 difference. Plus, I got an extra discount on the LG because they were having a promotional sale, but then they gave me more off. So it was almost a $3,000 difference between the LG C7 and the Panasonic A1E. And because all of the LG TVs all use the same panel, all use the same processors, although I know the B7 at first was using a different processor, or the B6, a different processor than the C7 up or the C6 upwards. I don't know if that's changed this year. I think that has. The only difference between the sets with the LGs really is design choice, the sound bars and the design of the television. Outside of that, they're all the same. As the guy from ratings.com said, you know, these TVs are virtually the same, so just pick the cheapest one. And he's right, because basically you're going to be hooking it up, I hope, to a good surround sound system and not really relying on the TV's internal speakers. Sony and the Panasonic have an edge there. The Panasonic has that sound bar from Techniques, which sounds great. Better than the LG's like E7 or G7 speakers. I would say the W7's on par. It's about it's on par with that, maybe a little bit better than the Panasonic speakers. And Sony, of course, uses the actuators to create sound off of the screen, which also sounds fantastic. But if that's, if you're planning to use the TVs essentially with just the speaker from the TV, then they may be a better choice for you if you're going to look at it as a one-stop device to do everything. But if you're going to be hooking up to a home theater system, to me that's kind of moot. Now, I run my setup through a home theater system, but I also at times, if I'm just watching general cable, I don't have cable, but if I'm just watching something on streaming or YouTube or whatever, and it's late at night, I don't always want to have my receiver and my amp running, because it just draws a lot of power and I don't need it. I'll use the TV speakers, and I'm very impressed with the speakers on this thing. They're Harman Kardon speakers. They're down-firing. They also include Dolby Atmos on all of their sets this year, and they sound amazing. I mean, I turn them I have to leave it less than halfway a lot of the time because they're so loud. I shouldn't say they sound amazing, but they sound very good for television speakers, better than the Samsung, my JS9500 by far. I plan to keep the JS9500 hanging on the wall and sort of switch these out now and again because this TV isn't 3D capable, and my JS9500 is. It's spectacular for 3D. It's a 4K, obviously 3D is 1080p, but it upscales everything to look like 4K. So watching a 3D movie upscaled to look like 4K is spectacular. But I still think that the 3D you get on an OLED is slightly better, even though it's like 1080p, but it's 4K. You know, passive halves the resolution, but when you have something upscaling it to look more like 4K and then having it back down to 1080p, this is what 3D should have been originally, and now people are understanding how good 3D was who didn't before, when they had 1080p sets cutting the resolution of their content. You watch a 1080p Blu-ray, think, wow, that looks beautiful, and then you want to watch it in 3D and the resolution's cut in half. Of course you're going to think this is just a gimmick, it's garbage. So now that you're going to be people are being able to watch it with passive glasses in 1080p, they're seeing what I saw in having a set with active glasses and being able to watch my content in 3D at 1080p. But unfortunately, they're kind of late to the party and 3D is dying, which is a shame. So anyway, just in the last thing I'll say with these OLEDs and this LED stuff is they're all good. They're all amazing. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, as does any technology. There's great things about LED. I love my Samsung. I'm going to keep it for gaming, even though this has a faster response time. For heavy gaming sessions, I'll use my Samsung because it has an amazing response time, and I don't have to worry about image retention or burn-in, which I haven't seen any of that on this set to this point. But you know, if I know I'm going to crack out on something and be playing it for a number of hours, I don't think I'm going to want to risk that on this set. And I'd rather play that on my Samsung. I'll do a little bit of gaming here and there on this, but for the most part, the Samsung will be for that. This will be mostly for watching, movies, a lot of HDR content. There'll be different things I may prefer to watch on the Samsung, but I'm very, very impressed with this OLED. And with the price difference between this and the Sony, I mean, the 55-inch Sony was, with the money I saved, $800 more than this, which is just ridiculous. So to put that into context as well, I was also looking at upgrading my receiver to 4K. I was going to wait, if I bought the Sony, till around Boxing Day to see sort of what, Boxing Week, to see sort of what happened there. But with the money I saved, basically that was less, or I saved, the receiver I purchased was less than, the money I saved gave me enough money to purchase the receiver I wanted and still put some money away in my pocket. This is the receiver I picked up over here. I don't know if you can see it there. There it is. This is the Yamaha Advantage 3060. It's a beast. So I have an external amp that I'm running anyway, an Emotiva. You can see that down there, the Emotiva XBA5. It's a 5-channel amp, 200 watts per channel to each of the 5 channels, to 8 ohm speakers, 300 watts per channel to 6 ohm speakers. And so I'm going to be running this, probably not right now because I'm in my living room is kind of I like to utilize a smaller space for my home theater, so I'll probably end up running it at 9.1.2, sorry, 7.1.2 at first, but then eventually I'll kick it up to, maybe in the next, I don't know, I just may do it right away, we'll see. But I'll probably be running it eventually at 7.2.4, which is one of the reasons I wanted to go with the Advantage. The 3060, I had purchased the 2060 a couple of days ago and ended up taking it back because it's not upgradable to 11.2. And there are some good 11.2 out of the box options, like the Denon 6300H, which is a great receiver. Techno Dad did a video on that. I know that's what he purchased, and I demoed that. And I liked it, but I'm currently running an Anthem receiver, and I just felt the gap in the sound quality was, it was pretty noticeable to me. The Anthem has an 11.2 out of the box receiver, as well as does the Onkyo. I'm not really always crazy about Onkyo's sound quality. I find that they're heavy on bass, but the mids and the highs I find sometimes are a little bit muddy compared to some of the competition. Great receivers. They've had their issue in the past with HDMI board failure. The Anthem 1120 is crazy expensive, and like I said, I'm running an Anthem now and I've never heard anything like it, and so I was going to buy another Anthem, but when I really thought about it, I had to hem and haw, especially when I heard the Marantz 7011 and then the Yamaha. That's when I really thought, you know what, I can't justify the difference in price considering how good these receivers sound. And then it came down eventually when the smoke cleared to the Marantz 7011 and the Yamaha. Now the Marantz is pretty amazing. It offers certain things that the Yamaha doesn't, like the ability to use Oro 3D, which is, you know, if you want Oro 3D, you're going to have to. In the States, it's a $200 upgrade, so you have to download it essentially to the receiver. So it's going to cost you extra money, and it's not really implemented in very much right now. So that's something to consider if that's what you want. It's also upgradable to 11 channels, so you can run like a 7 speaker setup, and then 4 Atmos speakers, and it has a better calibration setup, I think with than the Yamaha. But sound quality wise, damn, like I'm coming full circle. My first 3 AV receivers were Yamahas, and then I sort of started tinkering with other things and decided to try something different. And this is by far the best Yamaha I've ever heard, and one of the best receivers I've ever heard. My Anthem is a great receiver, but in ways this Yamaha actually surpasses it. The AV receivers have come a long way now. I'd say now is one of the times where you can go into a big box store and buy a good AV receiver. You need to, and not even just the highest end. I mean, within a line, depending on your usage, the 1060 will suit you well if you're happy with that kind of setup. The 2060, if you don't really care about running 11.2, the 3060 is their flagship, and some of the reviews I've read say it's currently, in their opinion, the best receiver on the planet. Again, that's all relative. I mean, some people will say the Marantz is, some people will say the Anthem is. It's just, I went into the store and I heard they played this for me with Dolby Atmos, and I was blown away by the sound of that. Just the dynamics, how powerful it is, and the separation and the surround sound, and it's a beast. The bass handling, it's the best in-store receiver I'd heard. The Denon was good, but it didn't quite match up to this, and as was the Marantz. The Marantz was just a hair, I felt, behind it, and it's just in the power and the dynamics of the sound. So that was my choice, and I'm gonna hook it up this weekend. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask me. But yeah, again, this OLED TV is very impressive. I am very happy with it. So it just make your choices wisely. Don't let people fool you about LED or OLED is better. There is nothing that's better. There is no perfect technology. It's all about your usage. It's all about what you're happy with. It's all about what you're willing to spend. There are going to be TVs that are better than others. Of course, the more you spend money, the more it goes upwards. I was looking at the Sony Z9D, but just fast-moving scenes on it, I was seeing blur. Just because of, the more backlight zones you have, like the Sony's 900E, I believe, has 20 zones of backlighting, which is okay. The Samsung, as I said, the JS9500 has about 220, probably slightly over 220. The Z9D has 630. So you're going to get better handling of the blacks, of course, and then with the brightness it can reach, it's going to give you like a really great contrast. But the more zones you have also means that the processor has to make these incredibly fast calculations when something is moving on screen very quickly, which leads to blur, which can lead to not so much jutter. You'll get a little bit of that, but for gaming, like, the response time is terrible. So if that's what you're looking at, it may not be the best Swiss Army knife of a television for you. The Samsung, I think, high-end LED is probably a better set for everything it gives you. But then if you don't like curved screens, then you're going to have that curved screen. And if anybody's going to be sitting out of the sweet spot, it's going to affect the image. So a lot of things to think about. But they're all great sets, you know what I mean? So just, you know, take your time to think about it. And peak nit brightness is also a little bit overrated. It's all depending on your environment, how bright the environment is, and that sort of stuff too. So, you know, go into the store, look yourself, take your own content as I did, and you're going to make the right choice. Anyway, love you all. Any questions, please let me know, and I'll be throwing up some more videos to show you some of the quality of this OLED. God bless. Peace.